I'm with Dad Who Games, and this is my 1960s split level, part 7 of my Sims homes of the 20th century. So, after some careful consideration and some feedback from my viewers, from you, I'm going to continue to provide stories of a 90s kid. But this still is a speed build video, and it is specific to a 1960s split level, so I need to say a few things about the house. And then we'll get to the continuation of my high school experience. As I mentioned in previous videos, the last few houses have been pretty basic and boring. I mean boring as in building boring, and I put them on pretty normal lots, and I kept everything simple. And for the split level, I wanted to make sure to do something a little more with the land, so I made sure to put it on a larger lot. I think this is 50 by 50. I'm not completely sure, but I wanted to do something more with the landscaping, especially coming off of having made the terrain tool tutorial that I made. If you haven't seen that one, why don't you go check that one out? It's short, it's like 6 minutes, just saying. Aside from that, making a split level uses a little sim engineering. By that I mean playing with platforms, because the main way that I achieved making a split level was by making the walls as tall as possible, and I think for this I used 4 platforms on top of one another, and when I repeated that for the second floor, I ended up with like maybe 4 or 5 floors using only 2 floors of a sim house. The layout of this house, in my neighborhood where I grew up in New Jersey, this was a really common style, so I just emulated that. I know there's some different variations, but when I think split level, this is what I think. And I'm sure many of you have very similar homes in your neighborhood or in your community. The one trade-off, though, of using the really tall walls and making 4 to 5 split floors, I had a lot of space that I had to decorate, so heads up that this video is a little long. Okay, so if I remember, last time I ended with the drama club. The drama club, that's right, and getting a part in a play and then getting yelled at for putting my feet up on the couch. All this coming from being called Tinkerbell because I had long hair, because it was the 90s. And for whatever reason, even though I was being teased because kids thought I was gay, I decided to do drama club, which only amplified the level of bullying that I ended up getting, which I still don't even know why I decided to do that. But nonetheless, I was in drama club. And part of the things that we had to do was, and I'm sure if there's anyone that is into drama or acting or any of that kind of improv, you do lots of exercises and games to, warm up your voice, or Limbarov gets stretched in so that you're ready to act and you can do your job and not have any problem doing it. One of the things that we had to do was we had to do a miming exercise where you paired off with a partner. Well, yeah, of course you pair off with a partner. Anyway, there was like maybe 20 kids in the drama club, all ages from freshman to senior, and it was all great. I mean, everyone was incredibly friendly and we had a lot of fun. But on this one particular day, I was paired off with Ronald McDonald. And I always jokingly say Ronald McDonald because obviously he wasn't Ronald McDonald, but he did have an enormous fro of bright red hair. And I don't mean orange ginger hair. I mean, it was like red like a clown. That, and he also had a huge red smile. But I wish I could say that was makeup. It was actually just, adolescence can be very difficult on some, and he was bestowed with an absolute horrific amount of acne all over his face. It was all red, popped ones, white. It was absolutely horrid. But I was paired with him, and you had to come up with a miming scenario, and what we decided was we were going to play golf on the moon. Which, I mean, you can immediately, as soon as I say playing golf on the moon, I'm sure you have some images that come to mind. And what ours was that I was going to, slowly swing the golf club. And he was going to be further away, and he was going to be the one holding the flag. Of course, we were thinking, like Buzz Aldrin, and I almost said Buzz Lightyear. Well, either way, the first men on the moon with the flag, with it being totally straight and not waving or anything, even though people think that there's space, wind, and it should have. Oh, we went to the moon. You can't deny it. Anyway, so he was holding a flag, and I hit the ball, and he just slow motion picked out the flag, and he was like, "Hoo." I mean, he didn't make any noise. We were mining, but in my mind, that's the kind of face he was making. "Hoo." Anyway. So we're goofing around. I don't know how many rounds we took playing golf. We did back and forth, but all the while, I get this feeling, and it was a feeling I never got before. It was very strange. I felt like someone was watching me, and well, a little background. See, long story short. In my family, it was the kind of thing, and I mentioned in other videos that I didn't have choice of what clothes I wore, what hair I had. I had a bowl haircut and all that, yada, yada, yada. So when I went to high school, I grew my hair out, and I turned into a grunge 90s kid. And part of that, like even today, I'm still learning things that I learned wrong from my parents. Like, I mean, stuff like my mom would always say, like, "Oh, well, you can't have cold stuff when you have a cold," or something like that. Or if you have a fever, you can't drink milk because it'll curdle in your stomach. Oh my God. Yeah, that kind of stuff, really. But one of the other things that my family never talked about, dating. Dating. Yeah. And moreover, like we did like mention the concept, but it was like, oh no, not until you're in high school. Like, because I couldn't do it in middle school, which, like, that honestly wasn't all that odd. I think it was true for everyone. We were still playing and, getting into trouble as boys in our neighborhood when we were in middle school still. But then, like, nowadays, like, middle school is just as much like high school with how the kids act. It's weird. So, one of the things I never felt before was a girl looking at you. Somebody who is looking at you with attraction. I never experienced that as a kid, and here I was, a freshman, goofing around with Ronald McDonald, and I can't help but feel like I'm being looked at. And I look up, and sitting on the edge of the stage was a girl. And she was most certainly looking at me, and I looked, and she was looking, and I was like, okay, wow, this is kind of weird. But I looked at her, and she looked at me, and I realized, like, oh, wait a minute. And then in my head, I'm like, oh, wait. Like, I heard, like, a bubble popped up, and it was my family being like, not until high school. And so it was high school, and I was like, oh. And, I regret to say that I can't recall how I went about inquiring of this girl to go to a movie. But I like to think that it was like, cool. But I know, no. Actually, I don't even think it was cool because I'm a dork. I've said that before. I'm awkward, social anxiety. I'm not like a backflip kind of person, so I probably was highly embarrassed. Needless to say, she agreed, and the best way in high school, I mean, it was like the coolest way to show up, to go to the movies with someone. Mom drives you. Yeah, and my mom is crazy essentially, and I came up to the girl and like, hey, like, great, awkward, hi, all that kind of stuff, and sitting in the back seat of my parents' car, my mom has to talk. Because my mom has no off switch. She just goes on and on and on. And we're just sitting in the back just like, oh my God, kill me now. And so that was that. And, we went to Friendly's because we had a Friendly's that was right by the high school. And Friendly's is amazing if you've never been to a Friendly's. But unfortunately, I think it's only on the East Coast because I think it started in, what is it, Massachusetts? Yeah. Look it up. I'm right. US Trivia 101. And then we went to our local movie theater, which the movie theater is honestly one of those old, decrepit places that at one time was just one singular theater, but this one was converted into like 5, and it was all mildewy, it smelled, it was horrid. But we went to the premiere opening weekend, Forrest Gump. Man, I was so excited to see that. But I started to learn about other things about being a teenager, and it was kind of awkward. So there we are watching Forrest Gump. I was kind of excited. Tom Hanks, how can he do any wrong? Um, Either way, we are watching the movie, and I'm stoked. The feather falls from the sky, and he's just watching it, and then the whole scene of like seats taken, and I honestly started to feel just as awkward as Forrest in the movie. Which, if you haven't seen that, please go see that. In fact, pause this and watch that movie, and then come back. Oh wait, no, I'm just joking. Don't worry about that. But watch the movie. Just like on the stage, when I felt the girl looking at me, I felt her looking. So I glanced at her like a little side, and she's just looking at me. And I don't even know why. Like it was at this point that some things started to flow into my mind. It started to get very crazy because obviously on one end of things, I'm a teenager. I'm a teenager boy for one thing, so my brain is not nearly as intelligent as all the females of my age. But I'm a teenager going through adolescence. I was like, hey, I heard rumors about going to movies, and while I'm sitting there, some things come to my mind. And one of them was, and I know we were in a theater, so the lighting was kind of off. I thought to myself as I looked at her, because I realized that she was expecting a kiss, that she wasn't all that attractive, if I could be so blunt. That might sound bad. Maybe it was because she started to make the kissy face, which I don't think anyone can look decent with the kissy face. But she was doing that, and I mean, she was okay, but I think it was more just the fact that I was like, oh my god, a girl is interested in me. Oh my god, a girl. So I went in to give her a kiss, and as I got closer, like this is all like super fast, super fast. Like I was the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man to her Flash Thompson. Like the whole first scene where you start to recognize Spidey sense, and like he punches, and Tobey Maguire's just like, oh wow, look at this, and that's how quick all these things happen. So the second thing that occurred was I started to smell her breath, and just her, and I was just like, well, I wasn't making that face. That would have been a little rude. Although I was a teenager, so I probably would have. But which now in hindsight I recognize it's the smell of not having brushed your teeth. Ah, yes, yes, that nasty, nasty cat took a shit in your mouth, bad breath, and I was just like, oh crap. But then I leaned in and I gave her a kiss on the lips. I gave her a kiss, and then I realized, which I know I learned a lot as an adult, but one thing I do realize is that females have, some facial hair, very light peach fuzz, and I know some women need, because it's a little thicker, will, wax or maybe even shave. It's totally normal. It's not odd. And some people don't, and it doesn't matter. It's fine. But she clearly was of the kind of the thought that you don't need to. Um, and so that was weird for me because I never knew that as a kid. So I was just like three strikes, man, three things that I was just like, wow. So it was exciting because it was the first time, but ugh, it was it was consequently the last time. But I also learned one final lesson from the whole thing. Because later at school, like I was at my locker in my high school, which I don't know about you, it's been over, oh my God, no, almost been 30 years since I was in high school. Holy crap. Anyway, if I were to go blindfolded back in my high school, I'd be able to walk right to my locker and open it. I don't even know the locker combination or what the locker number was. I just remember exactly like how many steps, how many turns, which direction. Anyway, I was at that locker, with my pictures of like Billy Corrigan and Chris Cornell, like all my heroes of the '90s. And I get a tap on my shoulder, and it's the girl. Hi. Like, oh, hi, how's it going? What are you doing? And I'm like, I'm about to go to Spanish. I'm going to French. I'll walk with you. And I was like, okay, sure, let's walk. We're both going in the same direction. We might as well. And then the one thing happened, and it went into slow motion because reached out and grabbed my hand, and she wanted to hold my hand, and I'm like, well, part of me wasn't all that weirded out because our school was overcrowded. I'm sure everybody had an overcrowding issue when they were in high school because, who cares about kids and making sure that they're comfortable? But when you have to walk between classes, it's like a river, and you have to like hold hands or link arms in order to have a conversation because there's just it's like a mosh pit. Just you couldn't walk around. And if like you're not holding someone's hand and you're having a conversation and you break your hand and they'll get flushed away. It's like, I'll talk to you later. Bye. You know? But she held my hand, but she was holding it for that reason, and she walked me to Spanish, and she was sitting there with that kissy face. And I gave her a kiss on the forehead. See, one thing I also did not learn growing up is that to ask someone to go out, like where I came from, asking someone to go out meant that I would like to go on a date with you. But where I grew up for high school, where I went to high school, it was when you say, do you want to go out? It means go steady and be a boyfriend, girlfriend. So that became my first dating experience as a teenager. And oh, honestly, you would think that like, oh, okay, well that was kind of funny to hear me talk about my dating experience. So why not share my other experiences? And the sad thing is, I really only have one other. And that's actually not all that exciting or happy because, well, see, I have a style. What I find attractive is alternative, rock star, short hair, messy probably, piercings, tattoos, and there was a girl in school that I was like that, and I thought she was gorgeous, and somehow, I ended up dating her. Um, but like holding hands, hanging out, like, well, not hanging out. Well, yeah, I mean, because I would go hang out with my friends, and she would be there and we'd be able to be together. It was cute. It was nice. And there was this one point though where by my school there was a convenience store, and it was honestly the only convenience store that just turned a blind eye to teenagers purchasing cigarettes. That only lasted so long though. Either way, um, we were hanging out behind it. I mean, it wasn't like a trash or anything. It was like there was this like a walkway slash alleyway, and like the tennis courts for our high school were right there. So it was a place that like if somebody was playing, you would sit. Anyway, um, we were sitting there just together, close, probably snuggling of some sort and smoking cigarettes, and my mom pulled up. Gregory, get away from that trash! And she started yelling at me in front of this girl, and she started crying. And that was my second experience. I got in the car and that was it. And I just didn't bother because, I mean, I still tried, but it always came back to that kind of a situation. So on the plus side, though, I right now have the most perfect wife, and she is the same thing. She just the other day shaved off all of her hair. And she's got all of her piercings, and she wants more. She's got some amazing tattoos, and that's my wife, and I love her. So, high school might not have been all that exciting in terms of dating, but I mean, I did find my solace in music. Loved playing guitar. I learned all different kinds of songs, uh, all my comic books, and also, of course, video games. Holy crap! So I honestly could not wait for my high school experience to end. Uh, well, I guess that's not completely true because, okay, I got another one for you. My high school math teacher, um, who ironically had the same last name as I did. She was Mrs. A Dad Who Games. No, math was the only subject in high school that I did well at. I didn't have the patience, for whatever reason, for learning about history or science or even English because, well, the English teachers in my high school just sucked. They just had their cookie cutter lesson plans, and there was no real actual learning going on in terms of expression or anything like that. But in math, it was clear there was an answer, there was only one way to do it, and I liked that. It was finite and organized. And that's why, I mean, for 3 years of my high school experience, I had the same math teacher because I requested her, and she welcomed me. She kind of was like a surrogate mother. And I mean, if you think back of what I've already said about my mom so far, because I'm sure that'll come up again, uh, you can imagine. Anyway. So even for graduation, my teacher gave me a cool little gift set of uh, like it was like a folder to put like a tablet of paper into and pens and also a planner because I was accepted and I went to college to become a math teacher. And yeah, so here I was. Um, a math teacher to be, but it was an elective course for English writing arts that I took that I learned how amazing writing could be. I got to read books that I never thought I would read, and I learned that writing is not just, grammar and all the boring stuff that we were taught in high school. And within a few weeks, I decided that I no longer wanted to be in Calculus 3. um, I wanted to learn about English, so I switched over and I became an English teacher. And in fact, I graduated with a double major with English and secondary education because I wanted to know what I was talking about. And between my own high school experience and my discovery of how amazing literature and the writing arts can be, I'm all about making sure that when I work with adolescents, be it as a teacher or a therapist, um, that they're looked after. Um, it's the toughest time in anyone's life, and we should really make sure that they are supported because they are the future. But I am not going to go into the whole political mumbo jumbo. Uh, I, I want nothing to do with that. I just want to play The Sims and show you what I can do with it. So don't forget to subscribe so you can support me. I want to make something out of this. This is so much fun, and I love that you enjoy it. So please make sure you subscribe. And hey, bring a friend. Maybe someone else might be interested in my kind of stuff. How many of you are from the 90s? Or you have some other interesting stories? Please leave them down in the comments. And, well, I believe I have talked your ear off long enough, so please enjoy as we take this final tour of my 1960s split level to enjoy some royalty-free YouTube-provided music. Thank you again for watching. Thank you so much for watching. It means the world to me that you would take the time to watch my video and listen to my cringeworthy stories. Please follow me on Twitter, and I am also regularly streaming on Twitch, so you can also follow me there. Next up is going to be a 1970s A-frame, which I know we see a lot of tutorials for it, so we'll see if I can do it. But until then, and until the next, have a day.